Ryan Rauschenberger, Tax Commissioner, should he quit? Yeah, he should. He should. No question about it. No need to pray on it. No need to talk about it and see what kind of decision we can come up with. No, he's got to quit. He's got to step down for his own good and for the good of his party and the state of North Dakota. Ryan Rauschenberger has to step down. No two ways about it. Number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. Jim Walsh back in the hot seat here at Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. Ryan Rauschenberger, state tax commissioner, says he will not resign following his latest arrest for DUI. He spoke about his struggle with alcohol. He said basically he got lax with the treatment. Oh, that happens. And he's remorseful. He said he's sorry it happened. Well, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to condemn the guy. I'm not saying he's a bad person. He's got a problem. He's got to deal with it. He's a sick man. I understand all that. But he's not doing himself or anybody else any favors by staying on that job. If he's got a problem with this, he needs to step down, deal with the job, and then he can move on with his life. It's not necessarily a political death sentence. I mean, we all saw what happened with George W., right? He had some of the same kind of problems. Look where he wound up. So, Mr. Rauschenberger, Ryan, Mr. Commissioner, may I modestly suggest that, yeah, you got to step down. You got to take one for the team. You need to resign so you can get your act together. And I say that in as compassionate a way as possible and then move on. Now, there's nothing political about this. The letter next to his name does not come into bearing at all on this issue, because we all know good and well that the guy who replaces him will probably be another Republican. We know that. That's how things work in this state. But Mr. Rauschenberger, the commissioner, he needs to step down. His de facto bosses, the governor and Mr. Carlson, need to sit him down if they haven't done already. Well, we know for a fact that the governor is going on record as saying that he's not going to ask him to resign. Commissioner says he contacted the governor almost immediately. He has not been asked to resign, or not yet at least. Really, the governor should. Al Carlson should. They should say, Ryan, you got to do this for your good, for our good, for the good of the state. You need to clean up your act. You need to get the help you need. You need to focus more on this. Obviously, you've got too much time on your hands now doing other things. But you need to focus on this exclusively and get it together, and that means you have to step down. It's for your good as well as everybody else's. Been a lot of hemming and hawing about this, which it just doesn't make any sense. Either he should quit or he shouldn't. I don't think there's any big, long, hard decision to make here. To me, the decision is pretty simple. Think about the job you're in. Think about if you had, and everybody knows somebody who's had these kind of issues. Every family has one or two people. It happens, like the old cliche, it happens in the best of families. It happens to the best of people that they have these problems, these chemical dependency issues. And you get into whatever works for you, the 12-step program, or, whatever cooks for you in your own personal situation. Some people just quit. They just walk away from it. I've seen that happen too. And they may even occasionally take a drink, but they've got it under control. Whatever he needs to do to get this thing under control and deal with it, he should be doing, but I think he's made it clear that he can't do it and do his job at the same time, and there's no shame in that. There's no finger wagging involved here. You should be able to understand because you probably, in all likelihood, you've got a friend or a family member who is or has been in this kind of situation. You know what it's about. And in his case, that's a pretty important job. That's one of those gigs you can't really phone it in. You got to do the right thing here. So it's my suggestion that State Tax Commissioner Rauschenberger should resign, should step down in the wake of his recent arrest for DUI. Now, just to refresh your memory, the previous incident here involving alcohol, and, we had the same discussion the first time he got in trouble. And a lot of people said, well, it was a one-time thing, it's not necessarily a pattern here. Well, fair enough, but I think now we can say it is. It is a pattern. As happens in situations like this, eventually the old programming will reassert itself. And there are ways to fix that, hopefully, but you got to focus the time and the effort on doing so. Now, the previous incident, he lent his car to a person he met in treatment who crashed it while driving under the influence. So there you go. The second time he's gotten in hot water. And he says he has spoken about his trouble with alcohol. He says he became lax with his treatment. That happens. People fall off the wagon. It's not that difficult, obviously. Again, it happens to the best of people. But really, for the sake of himself and for the sake of everybody else, for the sake of all concerned here, he's got to quit. He's got to step down. Are you with me on that? 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. More conversation, your calls coming up.
Currently 39 degrees.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
State Tax Commissioner Ryan Rauschenberger says he will not step down, he will not quit following his DUI arrest. But really, I think he should. Now, you probably had somebody in your family who's dealt with these kind of issues. Based on your own experience, where do you stand on the question? I think for his own good and for the good of the state at large, but mainly for his own good, he needs to step down and focus on this thing full time. Obviously, doing it part time is not working, and that's not a condemnation. That's not putting him down. He's a sick man. He needs to get the help. And to do that, it's increasingly clear that he needs to be full-time when he does it. So Ryan Rauschenberger, should he step down? I say he should. 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh here at Super Talk 1270. You can listen online anytime at supertalk1270.com. Be sure and get that app for your iPhone, your smartphone, or your ever-loving Droid. It's called Radio Pup from our big boss, Town Square Media. It's free, available at all the usual iPhone app locations. You can get it from all the usual places. It's free, and it's powered in Bismarck, Mandan by CK Auto. You can listen along any old damn place you go. So what about Commissioner Rauschenberger? Well, let's take the words right out of the man's mouth. Okay, with some of his more recent comments. He was arrested, to catch you up on the story, he was arrested on September the 30th. The official charge came down a week after that. He has admitted to struggling with addiction. He has sought treatment. He thought he was doing okay, but then, as often happens in these situations, he stopped being diligent with the treatment. He thought he was doing okay, felt like he was making some progress, so he got a little lax. He fell off the wagon. Yeah, it happens. It does. It happens to all of us in one way or another. But when you're being treated for something like this, it's especially important that you, the constant vigilance, as somebody once said. But listen to his own comments here and see what this says. See what you think about this. He says, when you're in treatment and you have an addiction, you need to keep going to continued care. You need to keep going to your counselor. You can't let up on that because that's when you slip up and things go off the rails. Bingo. And what he's actually saying more than he realizes here, because really what he's saying is, he needs to devote more time to this and be more diligent about this. It's become increasingly clear that he is one of those people. This is not a put down, not a moral condemnation of any kind. It's not a moral judgment, but it's just a fact that some people can handle it and keep down a full-time job. Some people can't. They need to step away from one or the other. In his case, for his own good, if for nothing else, he needs to step away from it. So it would be with all the compassion, with all due compassion, I'm saying that in this case, I believe he should resign. Why is it anybody else's business? It's only our business because he's in a public position. He's in a public job. So I'm just saying, as far as that go, he needs to step down from it and focus on his own personal thing. And I sincerely wish him, and there's nothing political about it. It has nothing to do with the letter next to his name, as seems to be so often the case in a town like this, where anytime this conversation comes up, it automatically becomes an issue of which party he belongs to. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I would say the same thing, if he had a D next to his name, or an L, or an S, or a B, F, Q, W, E, I, E, I, O. That's the North Dakota Agriculture Party, by the way. In any case, the right thing to do, I think, in this situation, sir, is to step down, get away from it for a while. You can always come back to it. You know how it is in North Dakota. You are a Republican. As Joel Heitkamp once said, you could take a rabid chimpanzee and run him for office in this state, and as long as he's got that R next to his name, he's going to win. And, of course, we can always point to people like George W. Bush as an example of somebody who actually had this kind of situation and bounced back from it rather well. Yeah, he did have a couple of added built-in advantages there, like his daddy, but still and all, the point is, it's not necessarily a death sentence. I think people will respect you more in how you handle it and how well you can bounce back from it. But it's increasingly clear he can't do that. In his case, he can't do that on a part-time basis. So it's my proposal, my suggestion, I should say. Obviously, we can't make him do it, but I really think it would be the best thing for all concerned for him to step down so he can move on with his life. 663-1270. Number here, 663-1270. You've seen it in your family. I've seen it in mine. It happens in the best of families to the best of people. And there are just some people who just need to focus all their time and all their effort in doing it. It really seems to me like he's one of those folks. And good luck to him. More power to him. I hope it works out for him. I hope he does get his act together. But I don't think just on the judgment here, and again, the only reason I'm concerned is he's in a public position. He's in charge of a branch of the government, so it affects all of us. Our tax dollars, are paying a salary and all that. I don't want to get heavy-handed about that. But the point is he needs to step away from all that and get his own. He's got to take care of number one. Okay, he's got to step away from that and get his personal act together. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to do much good for anybody. All right. I'll leave that where it is. Love to get your comments, though. Love to hear your stand on this issue at 663-1270, 663-1270. My name is Jim Walsh, Super Talk 1270. We'd love to hear from you on this. Let's talk a little bit about the business world and Sears. When was the last time you went to Sears? Do they even still have a Sears Roebuck in Bismarck? You may be asking yourself that right now, and if so, that's kind of the point, isn't it? The fact that you had to think for a minute to remember when Sears was one of those, what we in the marketing business world call top-of-mind products. Top of mind means, like if I say, name 7 popular brands of soup. And probably right off your head, you'd say, well, Campbell's, Lipton, and maybe, Progresso and Heinz and some others. But generally, Campbell's is right at the top there. Campbell's is what we call top of mind. It's the first one that pops in your head. You think you want to go, for Walmart. A lot of people's top of mind. You want to do that kind of shopping at a certain price. You think Walmart, and then you think maybe Target, and so on, right? And then Kmart is way down near the bottom anymore. Interestingly enough, aren't Sears and Kmart, aren't they owned now by the same people? But anyway, so you have Sears, and we all know that Sears is in trouble, but I didn't realize how much trouble they were in until this story today. And this is a big deal in the business world, but think about this. Sears Roebuck, or Sears, see, I'm old enough that I remember when they were still Sears Roebuck. Whatever happened to Roebuck? What happened? Did they buy him out? I don't know. Sears Roebuck and, see, I just instinctively say it. Sears and Whirlpool have gone by the wayside. Have you heard about this? If you need further proof that Sears is really up to their neck in it, the store will no longer sell Whirlpool appliances. Now think about this. Sears and Whirlpool. Sears has been selling Whirlpool stuff for over 100 years. They started when Teddy Roosevelt was president, right about that time. Maybe Taft, I don't know. But here's the problem. Sears says that Whirlpool had insisted on demands that they say make it difficult for Sears to sell the stuff at a competitive price. Basically, it all comes down to, how much you're going to charge for the stuff. And Whirlpool says you're not charging enough. Sears says, well, we can't charge too much because we got enough trouble getting people in here to begin with. So it's one of those unresolvable things, apparently. They could not come to a compromise. And so that's it. No more Whirlpool products at Sears. Think about that. Sears used to be the place to go if you wanted a washing machine. Your washing machine broke down, so time for a new one. Or, well, let's get a dryer, so we don't have to hang the clothes out there every day. And you go to Sears and you get a Whirlpool. And they went together like love and marriage, horse and carriage, whatever. No more of that. And you have to look at Sears and Kmart with some astonishment. Do you ever go to Sears anymore? I can't remember the last time I went to Sears. Have you been to Sears? I'd love to hear about your shopping experience there, if you have been there. And Kmart, too. Last time I was in Kmart was about 6 months ago. I swear it was like being in one of those zombie movies where the guy goes into the big store. There's nobody in the store. A little tumbleweed comes rolling by, and there's probably some zombies hanging out around the corner. But other than that, just a lot of nothing. It's sad. When's the last time you went to Sears or Kmart? What about J.C. Penney? They bounced back a little bit, I know, but they're still kind of in that category. 663-1270, 663-1270. Jim Walsh, Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. I'll be right back. Ready for Christmas Day. Have you heard about what Target is doing? You gotta love this. Target is actually responding to all the complaints about holiday creep. You know what that is? No, that's not Harvey Weinstein in a Santa Claus suit. It could be. Holiday creep is the idea that earlier and earlier every year, the stars put out their Christmas crap. And you got to see this stuff when you go in. I mean, it's ridiculous when you go into a store before Labor Day and you see they've already got the Christmas trees up. I mean, come on. Come on now. Well, Target now says that the customers, they're listening to the customers and they're going to back off considerably on the Christmas stuff, which is the way it should be. Don't you really think we do the Christmas thing too much? Don't you think we've gone overboard on the Christmas thing? People say Christmas is a big deal in this town. Fine, but still. Do you really need to see a lot of Christmas stuff in the stores before Thanksgiving? Number here, 663-1270, 663-1270. When I was a kid, probably you too, if you're of a certain age, you remember on Thanksgiving Day, on TV, they had the big parade from the big one in New York, usually it's Macy's, right? The Macy's parade. They'd have the big parade, and right at the end of the parade, the very last thing was the arrival of Santa Claus. And they always said, this officially marks the beginning of the Christmas holiday season for this year. And everybody kind of went along with that. It seems to me that'd be the way to do it. What's the point of getting into the Christmas thing too early? Yeah, I know, even if you like Christmas. And I don't, not particularly. Christmas to me and my wife are no bigger deal than, say, Valentine's Day. So, some people are like that. I am like that. It really bugs me to have to look at all this Christmas crap early in the fall shopping season. I mean, here we are. It's not even Halloween yet. A lot of these stores are already that's ridiculous. Day after Thanksgiving, you can start. Really, you shouldn't start in earnest until after, say, the first week of December. Like when I was a young pup. If you're old enough, you remember those good old days when you didn't get into the Christmas thing too early because it's supposed to be special, right? How's it going to be special if you're celebrating it for half the year? Come on. Get real with this. So let's give some serious mega kudos to Target for following up on this and saying, yeah, we're going to back off on the holiday creep thing. Enough with the holiday creep. All right, 663-1270 is the phone number. And earlier in the hour, mentioned the fact that Ryan Rauschenberger, our state tax commissioner, once again, he's gotten a DUI problem. He obviously has an issue. He needs to deal with it. It's my suggestion that people are saying, should he quit? Well, yes, he should quit. He should step down. There's just no two ways about it. It's at a situation now where he needs to focus on it full time. And the only reason, you might say, well, Jim, why is it anybody's business? Well, it's only anybody's business because he is in a public job. He's in a government job. And for that reason, he needs to step down so he can get his own act together and move on with his life. That's all I'm saying. 663-1270. Jim Walsh here on Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. I want to talk about, we mentioned Harvey Weinstein. And something about this whole Weinstein story that nobody has really touched upon. But it brings to mind a good question here. How do you deal with working for a guy like a Weinstein kind of guy? We've all had maybe one or two bosses in our lives. You've probably had that one boss who was just a total out-and-out abusive butthead kind of bore. See, that's the thing about Harvey Weinstein, that, we all agree that he's a pretty horrible human being, especially as far as women are concerned. But as people are just now beginning to note, we overlook the fact that he's not just an alleged sexual predator, but the fact is that this guy is, he's a jerk to everybody. He's obviously more jerky to some than to others, but he's just an all-around abusive jerk, a terrible boss, a guy you pray every night if you're religiously inclined, and I'm not, but you hope or pray, whichever, that you never work for a guy like this, because he's just a horrible guy to work with or work for. He's abusive. He abuses people. He berates them in public. He obviously gets off on it. It's obviously a power trip for him. His staff has apparently always been in terror over this guy with his temper. And we're talking male and female here. How do you deal with somebody like this? How do you allow this to happen? Well, we talked about the sexual abuse aspect, or a lot of people have, but let's talk about it in a more general sense, in the sense of how to deal with a guy who's just a horrible, terrible guy to work for. Let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that the sexual harassment thing doesn't even come into the picture, okay? Because that's kind of a whole different kettle of fish, and we've talked about that. But and by the way, all of this, again, was well known in Hollywood, and nobody ever stood up to him. Why not? But it happens in the real world, too. It may have happened to you. Again, it's the kind of thing that if it hasn't happened to you, it could happen. It could happen tomorrow, A zillion damn things can happen. Your boss could quit or die, or something can be replaced by the home office, and all of a sudden you find that this guy you're working for is kind of a dick, kind of a bad person. Okay, is what I'm trying to say. Be careful, Jim. Contemporary community standards and all that bull. Okay, so how do you deal with a bad boss? I mean, I can only tell you what I've told people in my own family, my circle of friends, the younger ones especially. You get to a point in your life, hopefully sooner than later, where you realize life is too short to have to put up with this crap. You should always be preparing for this kind of scenario in life. Always got to be prepared for the kind of emergencies where you may have to leave your job for a while. And you got to save. That's why you got to save your money, not just for your retirement, but for situations like this. Because if you get in a situation like this, obviously it's a call you got to make for yourself. But I don't think there's anything to be gained in being miserable and showing up to work every day at a job you absolutely despise and you're hating life and everything else just because you feel like you need the paycheck. There are times when you just got to quit. You just got to get out of it and then move on as quickly as possible, or maybe take some kind of stopgap job. Go work at loaf and jug. Not that there's anything wrong with loaf and jug, but I'm saying if you're making a lot of money and you need to step down for a while, do it. How do you deal with a job like that where your boss is such a jerk that you just hate the thought of going to work every day? We've all been in situations like that. Some of us more so than others. Remember the old days? You had one job for life. Well, those days are obviously gone. Now, chances are you're going to change your gig a few times during your adult life, and sooner or later, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you realize that I shouldn't be here. Did you ever take a job? And half an hour into it, you realize you've just made the biggest mistake of your life? Boy, have I had that experience. But again, what do you do? Again, how would you deal with it? I would say this is why you have to save up your money. Save your bread for a rainy day. And by a rainy day, I mean you just got to get out of a job that's... I don't think in this day and age, there's any real advantage in staying at a job that you absolutely hate, unless you just don't have any money, unless the money's all gone and the alternative is, standing out on the street with a tin cup full of pencils. And please don't think I'm trying to make a joke here. The point is that if you are in any position to do so, if you're in a job like that and you hate it so much, just quit, get out of it, and then move on with your life. You may find, actually, and that's been my experience, you may find that looking for a better job, well, people think that if you lose your job, the conventional wisdom has always been if you lose your job, it's going to be harder to find a job if you're not working. Not necessarily. Because if you're out of a bad job, you're probably so relieved and so happy to be out of that bad situation that you're just going to be a better person yourself to deal with, and you're going to put up a better showing when you show up for these job interviews. Just be honest. Say, hey, we had problems. It didn't work out, so I left the job, and now I'm looking for something better. That's why I came to you. Well, how would you handle it? 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh, Super Talk 1270. supertalk1270.com. More conversation coming up. Hang in there. Okay. Soupy sales there. Remember Soupy? Oh, God, Soupy was great. Super Talk 1270. Soupy Talk, yeah. supertalk1270.com. And Jim Walsh, Halloween, every year at Halloween, you get one story like this about the political incorrectness of certain costumes. One of the ones this year we're hearing about is from the movie Moana. Am I saying that right? The movie about the Polynesian girl. And she was very heroic in the movie and whatever. And we're getting stories about little girls who want to be Moana for Halloween. Well, some people are having a problem with this because Moana was Polynesian, which means she was kind of darkish, skin-wise. And Some people are saying, well, it's just not sending the right message if your child is dressed up like. Do you believe this? I mean, we're talking about kids here. Kids don't know from PC or any racism or any of that business. They're kids. Let them be kids. It's not hurting anybody. The intention is totally innocent, I assure you. Did you ever have this problem in your family? Did you ever have this kind of issue come up where the kid wants to dress as a character and you say, I mean, we're not talking about a kid wanting to dress up as Hitler like in South Park. Remember that one, Cartman? And the one where Cartman wanted to be Hitler for Halloween? Trick or treat. And people said, oh, Eric, you can't do that. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. So Cartman wanted to be Hitler for Halloween. Okay, well, maybe we'll draw the line at Hitler. But Moana, who is a perfectly nice character in a Disney movie, an animated Disney picture, she just happens to be Polynesian. Brown skin. Last year, Disney came under fire for its Maui costume, which depicted the demigod with painted brown skin. And the company ultimately pulled the costume in response to the uproar, telling Entertainment Weekly, the team behind Moana has taken great care to respect the culture. Again, look, guys, we're talking about kids here, okay? They're kids. They're innocent. They're not doing this to get a rise out of people. They're doing this because they see this character and they like the character and they want to emulate the character. That's what Halloween is about. No, it's one of the things Halloween is about. It's perfectly innocent, so don't worry about it. The New York Post recently highlighted an article on their website about how that's probably not a good thing. This is the Good Housekeeping website here. Good Housekeeping has a website. Everybody's got a damn website anymore. And they're saying that moms are freaking out over the cultural appropriation of the costume. And there are some people, I mean, there are white kids who like to dress up as Indians on Halloween. Now, when I was a kid, there was nothing wrong with that. It was not meant to disrespect the Indian culture. If anything, it was kind of the opposite. We're talking little kids here. They don't think like miniature adults. They think like kids. That's why they are kids. That's why we don't let them run around and... that's why they don't live on their own or work on their own instead of going to school. They're kids. Let them be kids. I don't get it. And I recognize this. Moana is a special character to young girls, not just of Polynesian descent. Although I guess the Polynesian girls, they would really relate to it. If you've never seen a Disney princess who looks like them, well, now they have. And that's fine. That's fine. That's all great. But again, evil to he that thinks evil. If you put these kinds of thoughts into the heads of your kids, then they're going to have issues. Then they're going to grow up to be racist jerks. But if you just assume it's innocent, we're talking 6, 7, 8-year-old children here. Kids like that are not old enough to be hateful unless they've been taught to be. So my suggestion would be don't sweat it. There's all kinds of great ideas for costumes, but let them be what they want to be. It's one of the few times you're a kid, you don't have much control over things, and Halloween is one of those few times out of the year when you can actually play act and role play and actually fantasize that you're one of your heroes. Okay, for a lot of kids, that's a big deal. You know, some kids like to be the scary monsters. Some kids like to dress up like their heroes. It's all part of the Halloween experience. What's wrong with that? I don't think anything's wrong with that. So if you're if your family is Irish or German and your kid wants to be Moana, I think you can do it tastefully. There's a way to do it that won't be insulting. I mean, problem is some people are going to be insulted no matter what you do. You know what? You ignore those people. The heck with them. Just leave them out of this. It's about your kids and about what your kids want. And if your kids are doing it for the right reason, if they're innocent about it, there shouldn't be a problem. Just everybody chill out. Be cool. Have a good Halloween. Have a happy Halloween celebration. And we'll leave it at that. And we'll say, fare thee well until next time. Your comments welcome. Supertalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Jim Walsh, Supertalk 1270. Thanks again for listening. Later.